Games Corner is a unique console-based gaming experience with 3D and LED screens, all within a comfortable atmosphere. Become a Games Corner franchisee now and bring this one-of-a-kind opportunity to your location. For more information, visit us at gamescorner.com.
Hi everyone, this is Ahmed Kremni and welcome to Be Efficient TV. The mission of this web TV show is to boost the efficiency of your business and life with tips and tricks from leading experts. And today I have with me Ash Siddiq. He's a Profits Maximizer coach, author, and the founder of the Top 1% Sellers Academy. Welcome to the show, Ash.
Thank you very much for having me, Ahmed.
Pleasure to have you. Before I ask you about the best cash, what's your background before that?
Sure. So I have been primarily in high tech for the past, 10, 20 years, working for high tech companies in the Silicon Valley here in California, and also had a stint at a financial services company in San Francisco, as well as also at Deloitte, which is a management consulting company. And all of that after coming to the US since 1994.
So you worked in which departments mainly, or you were like co-founder, or you worked as an employee in certain departments in those companies?
Most of those companies, I was basically responsible for developing their own staff, their own employees, primarily their managers and leaders and sales force. So my job was to create programs to help them develop professionally.
So it's like HR training, something like that?
It is training. It is definitely training with an eye on how can they increase sales, how can they increase the output or the productivity of these sales professionals. And at times also we looked at how the leadership and how the management team can create the conditions for success for these professionals as well.
How many years in that?
15 plus, mostly.
Why did you quit?
Oracle, Cisco. I actually was laid off from Cisco in August 2015. And even before that time, I was already starting to think about what else can I do? How can I basically think bigger, think big and act bigger, as my friend Jeffrey Hazlett says. How can you think big and act bigger? And that's what I'm trying to do now. And again, there's a lot of joy in entrepreneurship, and I'm experiencing it now. And a lot of pain is at the same time.
How is the pain?
Yeah. The pain is primarily, which kind of would lead us to talk about at least one of the examples. The pain really comes in the whole process of you have to be the main believer in what you're doing. Before you can have anybody else believe it, they have to really see you so passionate about it that they feel like this guy is going to go there or this woman is going to go there no matter what, right? And we're much better off finding a way to be part of their success and helping them move forward. And at least that's sort of like from the American culture perspective. I think in a lot of cases here, people, if they can help you, they will help you.
You are in the middle of the action in Silicon Valley. So did you raise capital for the ventures that we're going to talk about, or mainly you bootstrap?
Yeah, right now I actually sat with a friend of mine who used to work with me at Deloitte, which is a management consulting company. She said, Ash, what you're trying to do now does not require venture capital, and you might as well make sure you shape it in the best way possible based on your own vision before you start getting venture capital into the mix. So right now I'm bootstrapping the startup that I'm working on. It's a fintech startup, and we're hoping that by January we can actually start having customers and then also start looking for either angel investors or even venture capital as well to basically kind of grow the business.
What's the meaning of fintech?
So fintech is basically an abbreviation of financial technology. And over the past, I think, maybe 3 to 5 years, a lot of startups were born to look at how financial services serves their customers, all the way from banking functions to insurance and other areas. And everybody who's sort of very passionate about fintech or financial services startups is really trying to find a way to make things much easier for the end user, or maybe even come up with some amazing business models that the banks, because of their regulatory mindset and compliance mindset, may not have essentially tried to look in those ideas, in those directions, because their thought process is, no, it's too risky, we won't do it. Whereas the startup mindset typically is, let's figure it out, right? If we can make it work, let's figure it out. And if somebody stops us, then we can talk about it, right? So that's what you see happening a lot.
So what is Best Cash?
So Best Cash is the fintech that I'm working on, and the name of the company kind of says what we're really trying to achieve. With Best Cash, we are trying to help every American citizen get the highest bang for every buck they spend. And that's why we're basically saying, when you're trying to spend money out of your wallet, it could be in a checking account, it could be in a credit card account. And now in the US, you have a lot of people who have rewards on these cards, like miles or points or cashbacks. So the idea is that as you are spending, some people here are really making a calculation in their head. If I use this card, I will get 2% cash back. Or if I use the other card, I might get, miles or points. The problem is when you're trying to spend money, a lot of the information that you're looking for to make that decision is basically spread across, right? It's either in a piece of paper, as I've seen some of the people I talked with, they basically walk around with a cheat sheet telling them this card has this card has that, or you have to log in several apps on the phone, or you have to log on websites on the laptop. And most people now are largely making use of their phone to do their shopping. So what we're doing with Best Cash is we found actually that the financial services industry has all of this information sitting in their system, and it's available, but no one has ever thought of bringing all of that information on one beautifully designed, intuitive screen, which is basically your think of it as your mobile wallet. It's your digital wallet. And then on the screen, you'll be able to see each card and all of the data points that will really help you make a very conscious choice which card or which dollar is going to be the best one for me to use now because of the return that I'm going to get. So we are in the business of rewards maximization, and we basically promise our customers that every user stands to gain up to $10,000 as they make use of this app. They can really accumulate a lot of money back into their wallet if they use Best Cash. Whereas if they don't use it, they are really at the mercy of not having all this information that they need to make the best decision.
But how it works, they have to read the info for each card and the loyalty, percentages and things, or there is a way in the app that makes it automatic, like you put, like, example, I want to buy this, so it does suggest for you X card to purchase.
Yes, we looked at both. Yeah, we looked at both approaches, the approach of completely automating that process, and we found that a lot of people actually get a sense that they are losing control over which money they are using. So what we basically opted to do is, when you are at the point of sale, when you are in the store or you're online, you can actually visually see all the information in front of you. And then you have a chance to, I don't want to use my Visa card, I want to use my American Express card, and you can see all the information you need right there on the spot. Real time, you see the balances, you see the interest rate, you see the rewards that you're going to maximize. And then you say, I love this card, I'm going to use this card now to buy this because I'm going to get a whole lot more in return.
This loyalty issue, you don't think that there is a solution that can combine all these things in one thing? That it's really a big problem that until now no one really figured it out.
It is. Well, that's what we're hoping with Best Cash, because one of the features is having a dashboard that tells you all the balances across these rewards. And then we can make it possible for you to also see how you can exchange them for products and services, or perhaps even sometimes exchange them into gift cards, because sometimes people basically said they can actually expire. And if you don't know that they expire, you can lose all the monetary value that you can get out of these rewards. So we will also notify people of that expiration thing that could be happening and make it easier for them to redeem these rewards if they so choose.
Don't you think the credit cards with cash back will kill this? Like now, yeah, go ahead.
Actually, we're really helping. We're helping the companies that have credit cards with cashbacks to actually make it easier for the user to use the card more often. Because now, even if they have the card, sometimes they don't remember what's the cashback I'm going to get out of
Correct.
it, or how does it compare to the other card. And then we make it easy on the screen to scroll from one card to another and see all the information you want to see to be able to make that comparison.
And then it's like
So,
integrated with Apple Pay or something, so you just scroll, pick, and then you pay, or
and then you exactly,
okay,
absolutely,
okay.
exactly.
It's gonna
So,
be
I mean, again,
worldwide or only in the US?
first we're rolling it out in the US, and of course, as we go out to Asia, we have huge competition from Alipay. Hopefully, if we do such a great job in the US, it becomes more of a collaboration that we do with them. Because the other piece that we're doing is that we're going to make it possible for banks to take the app, embed in the app their own banking features, and then on top of that have the best cash features so that they can actually add more value to their banking users. Because we really are focusing on the whole concept of creating value. If the transaction can actually help the user save money or maximize the returns on their money, that's what we do. We're not thinking about it as a banker. We're not thinking about it as a retailer as much as we're thinking about it. Are you going to be able to put more money back in Ahmed's pocket? If the answer is yes, we'll do it. If the
Sure.
answer is no, we won't do it. Right?
Is it
A lot of
launched now or?
right now, it's actually in development. We are expecting around January timeframe to be able to make it available in the App Store. So it will have a desktop component. It will actually be an app on the phone, and also as you're shopping on the web, you'll also have a Best Cash Chrome extension that makes it easy for you to shop and again maximize your rewards as you are shopping. Anywhere you are shopping, it's going to be there with you.
Tell us more about the 1% Sellers Academy.
Sure. So the financial services startup is really now my sort of my baby project. I'm very excited about it. But at the same time, when we come back to sort of my corporate experience, mostly focusing on professional development, and you'll notice that even Best Cash is connected to the Top 1% Sellers Academy, which is basically a business I started after leaving Cisco to help sales organizations and sales professionals understand if I wanted to be the top in my field, if I wanted to be a top seller, what are the competencies that make the difference, right? So I started looking across my experience, across a lot of professional development experts, sales experts. What are they saying as the top 1% sellers' behaviors? And then I essentially documented this in a framework, what I'm calling the top 1% sellers blueprint, and organized it into 3 mastery areas: self-mastery, value creation mastery, and customer success mastery. And then in each one of these areas, there are competencies that, again, if a sales professional were to say, let me first see how well am I doing across these areas of competencies, and what's my strength areas, and what are the areas where I need development. So that's really what the Top 1% Sellers Academy is doing. We provide an assessment tool. We provide services around sales training and sales coaching and development. And then at the same time, also, we have a lot of content on how you can develop yourself to become even a better salesperson.
So it works for all sales levels, from sales executive to the directors, or is it catered to a specific group?
Yeah, it's mostly actually to the sales professional, him or herself, who wants to become basically the best in their field. So first, we'll actually assess where they are vis-a-vis the benchmark for top 1% sellers. We basically created a benchmark. We basically created like a yardstick that we can use to measure other sales professionals against. And then we can see how far are they, or how close are they to being a top 1% seller. And then they can customize a training program, a professional development program, a coaching program based on where they are today. The sales leadership, the directors and managers, they can look at it as a way that can help them understand how to coach their teams.
So you do it offline mainly, or you have a course that you sell it to them?
So we have an online assessment that people can take, and then after they finish the assessment, then we can take a look at what content can be useful in terms of help them develop. And if they need us to work with them as coaches or even to go in and train, we could do that as well. And it's not just me. I work with a number of people here in the US that are sales professionals, or they used to be executives, sales leadership, and they understand how to develop sales professionals, and that's how we can kind of bring that collaboration together.
Can you take us through the roadmap of how this system works?
Sure. So the roadmap would be to, number one, essentially do an assessment of the sales team. If it's one person or 10 or 20 people, and we'll basically then have them sit down at their desktops and answer questions across those key mastery areas. As I said, self-mastery, value creation, as well as customer success mastery across 12 key behaviors, 12 behaviors. And we see how they basically score across these behaviors. And then when we get the results report, it basically tells us, where their strength areas are and the areas where we can do some development. And then from there, we then look at, if we're looking at a whole team, we'll see if there are common development areas that need to happen. And then we'll either recommend an existing program that we can see that will help them, or we can actually build something out that will develop them, right? And then at the same time, we'll also think about how can the management team coach them so that we can develop these behaviors as well.
Can you take us deeper into the technicality of like self-awareness and the problems that you see in the salespeople and in the other two areas as well?
Perfect. So in the self-mastery area, the key sort of in-depth view there is the fact that we find that sales professionals, typically the ones that make it to the top, they have, as you said, the very high self-awareness. They also have a very good sense of what the mindsets that are ruling them are, whether they are they have positive mindset, or they have a mindset that basically says, I'm going to succeed no matter what. So they have that intention, they have that drive and motivation and focus because they want to do really well. Whereas sometimes you come across a sales professional who will basically complain about the fact that they are not succeeding because their manager is not helping them, or their colleagues are not helping them, or the product is not good enough, or any other reason, right? So they will either be sort of like a victim mindset or a responsible mindset. And we look at these mindsets because we want to pick the ones that are really going to help people succeed, right? If somebody is walking around with a victim mindset, we basically try to say, this is not going to help you and not going to help everybody else that you're working with or even the company. And we basically talk about how can you identify the mindsets that are standing in the way versus the ones that will help you move forward, right? So that will be a big chunk of what happens in the self-mastery area, is to understand what's going on inside. What is the head game that is affecting their behaviors before we start getting deeper into, sales skills that you can always develop. But if you don't develop the mindset areas, then you can develop the sales skills, as much as you want. But if that person every day wakes up feeling like he or she is the victim of the circumstances around him, then he's not going to take action.
How
right?
do you make him, shift him from fixed mindset to non-fixed mindset? And like, what's the tools? What's the kind of coaching that you do with him or her?
Yeah.
And what are the top 3 areas, let's say, that you see that distinguish those successful salespeople, like persistence, positivity, other stuff?
Yeah, so the 3 things that I think would drive, you can tell in top sellers, they understand clearly that, number one, they have what's called an abundance mindset. They understand that money exists everywhere, that there is no shortage of money, there is no shortage of customers, there is no shortage of the possibility that we can close a lot of deals. Without regard to what the economy is or where we are in the world or what the customers are doing. They basically have this unstoppable view that the money is there. We just need to go find it, right? So, and then your question is around, how do you develop that mindset in people, right? And sometimes we will use stories, we will use metaphors, we will actually get them talking, because this will sort of tell us what their basically we can think of it as their worldview. How do they see the world, right? And as they start talking, you'll find out if they complain about the economy, what's happening in the country, what's happening in their job, the fact that the competitors are eating their lunch. You will understand whether they are giving in to the circumstances or they're basically saying, I'm going to make it no matter what, right? And if we were to interview a number of people that we want to hire for sales, the very first thing we want to do there is to find out if, their mindset is looking in one direction or another. If they have the mindset that I am going to make it no matter what, that's the kind of person you want, because circumstances will come in the mix. The products will change. The economy will change. But you really want that passion that we're going to make it no matter what. At least you have the motivation and the drive that will help change the dynamic of what happens. So I think it's by showing them what their thought process is, number one. You can also show them the thought process of other people, number two, so they can compare and contrast. Which one do you want to be? If you want to succeed, which one do you want to be? Do you want to wake up every day thinking the whole world is against you? Or do you want to wake up every day thinking the world is actually waiting for me to take action and the world is waiting for me to step in and help the world move forward? At the very least, that's going to get you out of bed, going to get you out of the house, going to get you in the car, going to get you into the office, to the meetings. And that's the kind of motivation that we want, because this kind of person will also be a motivator for a lot of other people. And most things now doesn't happen by virtue of one person. He or she has to motivate a whole team working around them. A lot of the time you need partners to work with you and support you. So that passion and drive is really the very first ingredient that you want to have. And I think in a training environment or a coaching environment, number one, you need to ask lots of questions to find out how they think, how do they see the world. And then you can assess based on your experience whether or not that's a subject, that is a person that I can change, right? That I can help them understand the value of them changing, right? Because I have to correct myself here. You're not going to really change them as much as helping them change themselves. That's what really needs to happen.
How about the second area, which is what? The value area?
So the value creation area, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the value creation area is really helping people understand when they help the customer succeed, when they really get in-depth understanding of their customer, what's happening in their industry, what are their pain points, what they want to achieve, what is the customer as a professional working in the company that they're working at wants to achieve for his own career, for his own progress. You understand all these issues, their emotions, their feelings, whether they are very worried about the reputation in the company. They don't want to take any risks with a new solution because they're afraid if the solution doesn't work, they're going to say he bought it or she bought it. So as much as you think about that customer and you try to put yourself in their shoes, and then you come back with such incredible sense of, I really need to make sure this customer gets the best product. And if the product I have is not the best one in the market, I need to help them find the best product, because when I show them that I can actually think of them and think of their best interest in my mind, they can see that that's the kind of person I am. I'm not pushing the product that I have no matter what the circumstances are. They will then say, well, Ash or Ahmed is really someone that I can trust. And if I can build that trust relationship, then I have this customer for life. If this deal doesn't work and if I don't have the product for this deal, maybe the next deal is going to be the deal that they will call me actually. They will say, hey, we're going to buy this thing for $5 million and we think you're the right person that can help us bring it in-house. Can you please come, right? That's the kind of situation you want to create in the customer's mind. And I think top sellers, they invest so much time in building relationships with their customer with a long-term view. It's not about a transaction, it's actually more about a relationship. And when they build that relationship, they actually have a very, very, very long-term relationship that will actually pay a lot of dividends, not just a single deal. A lot of sellers who are not top 1% sellers, they're much more interested in the quota. They just want to make sure they get past the difficulty that they're having in this quarter, but life doesn't work that way. The success that you create by building the relationship really creates a much bigger opportunity for you down the line and a much more, revenue pie portion of what the company spends. So that's really how you get seen as someone who creates value for the customer.
So the
And
second
then
area also there is kind of you have to identify the avatar of your customer as well, understand him well,
exactly,
and then you see what's the value
absolutely,
that you are adding in your product or
exactly.
service, and then you try to match make both.
Yes,
How about the third
yes.
area?
So the third area is what we're basically calling customer success, and it's much more important now, especially that in the past, people used to sell, physical products that you deliver to the customer, and most of the time you basically got your money and you walked away. Now everything, for the most part, especially if a lot of technical products are in the cloud, and that what the customer is buying is not buying the customer is not buying a physical product, they're actually buying a service, and you want to be there for a long run with that customer, because the customer is going to be paying for this service on a monthly basis. So now you want them to believe in you, to believe in your value proposition, in your product, in your service for a very long time. So in order for you to ensure, number one, that when it comes time for renewal of the service, they're not going to think twice about it. They're going to basically say, he's constantly making sure that our system is working really well, that if we have any questions, we call them, we get answers. We have this hand holding that's happening on a constant basis, and these guys are taking care of us whenever we need to, and that's why we're going to pay for a whole year of subscription service, and we can see ourselves being customers with them for a long time. So when a top seller puts their customer success top of mind, the customer then is highly likely to renew for a long time to come, because they're thinking all the time about what other options exist. Whereas if I'm always there, I'm always making sure that my organization has a customer success team, and I myself as a sales professional understand that it's not just about closing the deal and walking away, it's really more about closing the deal and ensuring that the solution will actually do what it promises to do. And then I'm there to support them in that process. That's how I can guarantee renewals and also the ability to come back and sell more things.
What's the other projects that currently you are involved in as well?
So I think primarily Best Caches is the top project. The Top 1% Sellers Academy now is more of a consulting service until we get the fintech up and running very quickly. We're also, a lot of the things that I'm going to share with you now are basically just a result of the past year and a half. A lot of stuff has been in progress. So I finally have a book coming out in 2 weeks. I've been working on that book for about a year plus now. Almost 2 years now. And it's a book on leadership communications that's coming out on the 27th of September. And we're going to have a service around the book, around leadership communications, where it's called the Executive Greatness Institute. And the objective will be to work with professionals who want to go up the corporate ladder. And a lot of the time, especially here, when we look at the American market, there are a lot of people who are very successful as technical professionals, right, in the expertise that they have. But whenever they want to go up the ladder, they feel like they don't have, or they are being told, they don't have executive presence. And a lot of the time, no one explains to them what does executive presence mean, right? And we've worked with, the top 50 executives at Cisco, John Chambers, Chuck Robbins, a lot of the team that's running Cisco today, on the sales kickoff meeting and the partner summit. My job was to work with them on the content and how they get up on the stage and deliver amazing big speeches in Las Vegas and other venues. So we really kind of learn along the way, not just by virtue of our experience, but also by virtue of watching these executives tackle difficult issues and communicate around these difficult issues, that we've basically been able to take that experience, publish it in the book, which also includes interviews with a lot of other executives from other companies. And now we want to take this and make it actually much more easily available for other executives to come to us. They can learn personal branding, they can learn executive presence, how do they develop their messages, and eventually how they can get up on a stage and communicate to larger audiences with power and impact, so they can essentially then qualify for running large enterprises, large corporations.
You had
So that's
another book
another.
with Jack Canfield as well. What's the name of the book?
The book with Jack Canfield is called Road to Success, and that's really where I took the whole sales process that I talked to you about today, and I really made it more accessible to a wider audience in terms of how can somebody really become an unstoppable force, right? I basically give them this formula called the Own It, Win It, Crush It formula, which is really replicating the sales process that we talked about, but we're making it much more meaningful to a larger audience. If people own it in the sense that they really become masters of their own mindsets, right, as we were talking earlier, and if they win it by understanding their customer, as you said, the customer avatar, understand what solutions they need and really help them succeed, then highly likely they will actually be able to crush it, which means customers will actually be telling other people about them, and they will get a lot of word of mouth to happen. And sometimes they won't even have enough time to take care of all the customers because they just keep coming, right? So we start with owning it by being responsible for what we do on a daily basis, to winning it by being the best we can be in the professions that we have selected, and that's when we crush it essentially. So that's what in that book is a very kind of summarized version, and it really is becoming more and more part of. If somebody were to ask me to give a talk, that's what I talk about. I basically talk about how can you become an unstoppable force by adopting the Own It, Win It, Crush It formula to drive success.
First book was with a traditional publisher or self-published? I think traditional.
Yes.
So and the second one, you're gonna self-publish it, or you're gonna go traditional?
Yeah, the second one is we're self-publishing, and next week, this week actually, I am going to New York to interview the head of McGraw-Hill, the CEO of McGraw-Hill, which is one of the largest publishers in the U.S. We're excited about doing an interview with him, which will become like a bonus chapter for the book, and eventually we also hope that McGraw-Hill would become the publisher for the book eventually. But
so
we
are
self-publishing in the
experiences, like in terms of traditional publisher and self, or you still, it's early to ask you this question until you see how the experience.
I think the so far we've spoken also with the American Management Association publishing president, and you can definitely tell, I mean, in their own eyes, they want to make sure that the book is actually going to sell a lot of copies. When we think about self-publishing, sometimes you are thinking of the book as a stepping stone to something bigger, right? Whereas the publisher wants to make sure he's only in the business of publishing, so they want to make sure the book itself will sell. Right, and that's why I think self-publishing now is making it a lot easier for a lot of people to step into the world, get, let's say, a book published, and then start building more and more of their authority and their business around the ideas that they have in the book, versus, let's say, just trying to make money out of the book itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you are an author and you are in fintech. And you do training as well. Which area you feel you are more passionate about it? Like if the fintech startup Best Cash worked,
yes.
Would you stop doing training, like example?
Yeah, I think I will probably be doing more of conference, keynote speeches versus the training, because of the fact that the Best Cash FinTech is exciting because of the fact that it will actually help a lot more people, right? Than if you were to do the training, you only help the 50 or 250 or 5,000 that you are training. But with Best Cash, we actually see a lot of value for even banks to use it and give it to their customers. So there is definitely the potential that thousands of users could be actually making use of it. So that's really where the excitement is coming from.
What's your life and work routine looks like?
All of what we talked about, gets mixed up on a daily basis, which is crazy. So I have to constantly make sure that I'm on the right channel. But I try to start the day very early. If I can get an exercise done in the morning, it's typically a fantastic thing when it happens. So I try to do some kind of exercise, whether it's walking or running. just to get activated. And then typically I will have conference calls with development teams in Pakistan. Then I might get on another conference call where I'm taking care of a customer that I am working with from a sales training perspective, that kind of business, if you will. Um, and and the day kind of goes by divided up between the fintech and the top 1% sellers, or maybe pushing the book to the public, publishing stage. So that's typically how the day would run. Sometimes it's one thing more than the other. Sometimes it's the fintech that's consuming the whole day. The past few months have definitely been consumed primarily with the fintech.
You work
than
from
with
home or office, and how do you compare the loneliness of entrepreneurship with the corporate world
Yes.
environment, office environment?
So I definitely work from home. I work from Starbucks. I work from coffee shops. So it's either a coffee shop or home.
Where you are more
Uh,
productive? In Starbucks, more productive.
I think it's the noise of yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes it's the noise around you that makes you feel like, as you're saying, like if when you're in the office, you feel the noise and you feel everybody around you is working, you know. So you're absolutely right. Sometimes that's the case. I look for that, noise. Sometimes even record the noise from a Starbucks and turn it
No,
on the
because
phone
you're sitting,
as the
like it's
background.
different
Yeah.
for each different people, but like when you are in
Yes.
a restaurant, you are sitting and focused. You get it done
Y-
while you're eating. At home, you have
Yes.
lots of sometimes,
Things that
distractions.
distract
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's a mix between the two. And then if, sometimes I get on a conference call with a client. If I'm on a conference call, then I typically need to be in my home office because of the noise factor from Starbucks. Maybe one day Starbucks will have like side offices that you can use, like, quiet areas.
What's the tools or software that makes you more efficient?
So definitely texting on email, text on the phone, email. Slack is definitely becoming something I like to use a lot. It's very popular here in the US.
Slack or WhatsApp?
Slack, and then WhatsApp is not as much. It is in the US. Slack is more probably, but maybe outside. To your point, people are doing a lot of use with WhatsApp, and also Skype on and off depending on who I'm communicating with. Sometimes it's the tool that they prefer to use, but I think that's really where most of the day is spent between these texting apps and the email app. And of course, making use of the web and looking at other companies and what they're doing. And YouTube is another source for me where I'm either listening to some motivational content or I'm learning about what other fintechs are doing. So for me, YouTube is the largest university on earth.
Other hobbies?
Other hobbies, for the past few years, I've been actually playing soccer with a bunch of dentists up here in the Sacramento area. For some reason, a lot of Egyptian dentists chose Northern California.
Okay.
So we ended up creating like soccer teams and we end up playing a couple of times a week. So it's been a lot of fun because, of course, the camaraderie that's there and just also getting the physical exercise.
Just warm
So
up and
that's
stretch and be careful. Watch the knees.
exactly, exactly, exactly.
Top 3 mentors.
The top 3 mentors for me would be my dad, and of course people like Jim Rohn. Just listening to him on YouTube is
He's
a
amazing.
great insight. And then I had one boss at Oracle. She was just amazing. Woman with a lot of passion and abundance mindset, and I just picked that. So sometimes the mentoring was happening just because people were behaving around me in a certain way, and I was being aware of how they compare to others and kind of learning as much as I could from them.
Which environment you liked more, Oracle or Cisco?
They
Or
were
culture?
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cultures definitely. I liked probably Cisco more because there was a bit more stability than it is at Oracle. At Oracle, I felt, at least at that time, that the company was changing every 6 months. At Cisco, not as much. At Cisco, maybe a lot of more acquisitions were happening, but the company itself was much more stable than it was for me at Oracle. It felt like the organizational changes at Oracle were much more frequent. than they were at Cisco. But definitely amazing organizations, and it's just amazing how they have grown over the years.
What's the best CRM that you recommend for sales and marketing?
Definitely Salesforce is one of the biggest ones, but now also there are a few that are coming on the market. A lot of startups that are trying to do things that are different. I personally believe that if you use Salesforce, you're highly likely to be using something that the other customer is going to be using as well, which will make it easy for you to integrate systems. But again, I think a lot of startups are trying to kind of poke and try to achieve their presence as well.
What's the best marketing strategy one strategy that helped you the most in your business?
Find a way to make it appealing and a win-win scenario for somebody else who has a bigger presence, has a bigger name, has a bigger brand to work with you. Because that way, at least you're going to, number one, make use of all the dollars that they spent to be where they are today. And you feed off of years and years and years of their work, so you can actually then become a little bit closer from branding perspective to that category, right? And you have to think about what would actually make this a win-win situation. Is there a catalyst? Is there something that you could do that could help them along the way? And as much as you can find that catalyst and you make it a win-win scenario, I found, at least here in the US, a lot of people who are far ahead from where I am are much more open to working with me if I craft my message, craft my request in a way that looks like at the end of the day, I will also be hopefully adding value to them as well. And some of them, they do it because they know, down the line, something is going to happen, right? Like I interviewed one very well-known sales speaker, and he did it completely out of kindness of his heart. He did not know that, let's say, a few months later, I will call him up and say, I have Cisco now as a client, and Cisco is looking for a sales speaker. And I basically acted as, I am basically like the speakers bureau, right? So I brought him over, I introduced him to Cisco, and literally yesterday, we were there in North Carolina with him talking at Cisco, right? So it's amazing how, as we say back in the Middle East, you sometimes, you do good and you throw it at sea.
You
So
add value and then
a lot of people,
the money
a lot
will
of
follow.
people, exactly. So I've seen people here do that a lot, and it's incredible. So I definitely believe that as much as you think of, I've always went after big brand names. If you look at Deloitte, Oracle, Cisco, very rarely have I worked on a brand name that nobody else knows, because why not? I mean, it's very opportunistic thought process, but at the same time also it makes a lot of logical sense that you want to be associated with big brands that will then help you achieve much more success than if you were to work with much smaller brands.
Top 3 factors for success.
You have to be hungry for sure. So here I'm up against the wall physically and literally. When you are your bank account gets drained, your energy is drained. You go to Starbucks or go grab a coffee and say, it's gonna get better. That's the only hope we have. So basically, having the faith and being hungry are incredible sources of passion for me, and they help me move forward. And then, of course, having faith that God has a bigger plan. So that's really what drives me.
Best Cash also help in that. Save money.
Best Cash is an amazing. Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity, and I hope it works out.
What's the habits that you're trying to develop to stay efficient?
You keep focused on making sure that you are pushing whatever it is you're doing, you are pushing it forward. Make sure that you're making progress. And I would say, as much as you can, find relationships that will help you move even sooner, right? And sometimes, I think of the idea, and then the very first thing that will come to mind is for you to kind of slap yourself in the face and then say to yourself, what are you thinking? But my recommendation is don't slap yourself on your face and then ask yourself, who knows someone that could do or know how to do this, right? And you, thank goodness now you have Facebook, you have LinkedIn, you have Twitter, and reach out to people. Highly likely, if you keep asking, people are going to answer, and you're going to be able to move forward. So definitely make sure that on a daily basis you understand what are the steps that are so critical that they will make a big difference in moving you forward versus activities that are going to waste your time or not necessarily move you anywhere, right? Like you're moving sideways. So make sure you're taking a step that's going to move you forward, and focus on a few things. I say that even though I'm working on a number of crazy ideas, but as much as you can, make sure that you have the energy and passion to push them forward. I think that is very critical.
Top 3 books.
I remember more the authors you want to read for someone by the name of Tom Peters. He is a management consultant who's written a number of books. I think one of his books, he has the Brand You books, which really talk about how can you as a person develop your own brand. And then he also has a book where he talks about the professional services organization of one, which basically teaches people the idea that no matter where they are running their own business, whether they are employees or entrepreneurs. You're running your own business, which means you have to think like a business owner. You have to take care of your clients. You have to take care of your marketing and so on. I talk about that as well when I give my own talks. It's a very, very fundamental concept that drives a lot of people to have a lot of freedom and take action to drive their own business. And then, of course, somebody else to read for would be someone like Jim Rohn would be another author to read for, as well as, of course, the great Tony Robbins as well, for sure.
When you are depressed, how do you change your mood?
That's a great question. Yes. I always try to remember that it used to be worse in other such scenarios. Number one, for me, I've had my own even worse situations, and I also look at where I am, and I'm always visualizing that every one of us is basically walking up a ladder. And when you are walking up a ladder and you put your foot on one of the steps, there are a few more steps ahead of you, and you just came up from a few steps below you. So remember, it used to be worse. And remember, you have a way there's a lot more for you to go up those ladders, right? Those steps. So I think the fact that everything is in progress, even though during that day you think everything is like stand still, in reality, you're still going up that ladder, right? And remember, you were down in the bottom before taking the very first step. So I use those sort of thoughts to help me realize that wherever I am somewhere on that ladder. And thank goodness I am actually on the ladder and not off the ladder.
What's the best advice that you have ever received?
The best advice. I would go back to my mom, and the best advice that she gave me was, she of course she said that in Arabic, and she basically said, people are treasures, which basically meant building relationships is the best and most fundamental asset that you are going to count on in order to achieve success. Go out, meet people, and that's how you can create value. And it's still a big thing. You and I talk about, everybody else talks about building relationships. It's the most amazing thing.
If you have the chance to go back, what would you say to advise your younger self?
I would have said, it's a good question. I would have built relationships much earlier, because it took me a while to get rid of my earlier shyness as I was growing up, right? So a lot of the time I would be reading a book versus outside of the house talking to people, right? And I think if I did that earlier, I would probably be in a much better shape. And especially from not just sort of building sort of superficial relationships, but try to get really deeper into the relationship, understand what people are going through, what businesses are they doing, how are they doing these businesses, and ask some good questions so you can learn from them, right? If I did it sooner, I may have been somewhere else today. I mean, basically from, the level of achievement that is. Even today, I can definitely go out and do more, and just get even deeper in the relationship, which is something I need to do more of, to be honest.
What makes you really happy?
Working on exciting things and seeing the results of my work starting to happen in front of my eyes, and the fact that a lot of what I'm doing is based on faith, and then when I see things coming together, I know there is a divine power behind it, and then I'm much happier because I know, you know what? Sometimes you think, oh yeah, we're hot shots and we're doing this and that, but you know what? At the end of the day, if the creator of this universe wants it to happen, it will happen no matter what. So that is another wonderful dimension to where happiness comes from.
Last question, how people can contact you?
The best way is to reach out on LinkedIn. Ash Sadiq is the profile name. And then I make it easy also from an email perspective. The email is ash@connectwithash.com. And that way I can always point them to LinkedIn. But the last name is spelled as in Sam, E as in Edward, D-E-E-K. And Ash, of course, is ASH. Very easy. On Twitter as well, on Facebook. And I love connecting, as we've seen, people listening in have seen me. This is the most valuable thing I like to do. And I love to start by giving. So if anybody has anything on their mind where they think someone like Ash can help, I am definitely interested in helping, because I know that's how we create a lot of goodness. And I know it will come back.
It will. Thank you so much, Ash. Really appreciate it.
That's fantastic, Ahmed. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Be efficient and stay efficient, and see you soon with another leading expert.
Thank you, Ahmed.